What's up, guys? Justin here with the RenderingEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp and Lumion tutorial for you. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about how to use node replacement to quickly place things like lights inside of your models. This can save you a lot of time because going through and adding lights individually can really take a whole bunch of time. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So what we want to do in Lumion is, if you've ever tried to add lights before, you know it can be fairly time consuming. Like if you have something like this where you have a whole bunch of these lights and you're trying to apply something to them, coming in and doing that individually can just really take up a whole lot of time. And so I want to talk about a method that you can use inside of SketchUp in order to create nodes that you can quickly replace with lights. And so to start off, we're going to go into our SketchUp model. This is a model I've downloaded from the 3D warehouse. It's the 3D Villa 18 by Nicholas Ebner. So you can download this in SketchUp and follow along if you want. And obviously I've already exported this to Lumion and I've kind of replaced some materials in here. There's probably a little more work that could be done, but for right now I think it's ready to go. And so from inside of SketchUp, what we need to do is we need to take our lights and we need to export them in a way that we can import them as nodes inside of Lumion. And so I have two sets of lights in this model. So I'm just going to click inside of it right now. I have one set of lights that are in here that are on the ground. So these are my ground lights over here. I have my other group of lights that are in here on the underside of the roof. So my down lights. And what we're going to do is we're going to export both of those to nodes and import them into Lumion. And so the first thing we're going to do is you need to group the lights that you want to export. So those need to be in their own group. They don't necessarily need to be on their own layer, though you can definitely do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to use an export feature in SketchUp that we can use to export just this selection into its own model. So the way that we're going to do that is have all of your lights grouped, and really every object that's inside of this group is going to be a node. So you can see how each one of these lights is going to get replaced with an object inside of SketchUp. And you can do some things with like setting up the axes and stuff so these are oriented properly. I'm not going to worry about that too much for right now. For right now, it's just important that you have this group. And so once you have these grouped, and you don't want to have anything inside this group except your lights that you want to replace with lights in Lumion, but you're just going to go up to File, Export, and you're going to select the option for 3D model. And so inside of the option for 3D model, there's going to be a bunch of different file types that you can export. Specifically in this case, we want to export these as a DAE file. What the DAE file is going to do is that's going to export this in a way that these get read as nodes. And this is one thing I'm not 100% clear on. If you go inside the Lumion knowledge base right now, it does tell you that you can just export these as a separate SketchUp file in 9.0. I tried that and it didn't read these as nodes. So I'm just going back to the old collada file way of doing this. So I can tell you this way will work. There may be another way, so if you guys know of it, just let me know. But we want to go ahead and we want to select the option for collada file, and then inside of our options we want to select the option for export only selection set. So what that means is that's going to export these to this file containing only the objects we had selected. And so make sure you have that checked, and then we're going to click OK, and we're just going to name this something like ground lights or something like that, and we're going to click the button for export. And so now we're going to go into Lumion and we're going to import this model into you're going to import your exported lights file into Lumion. So you can do that just by going into place mode and clicking import, and you just want to double click on your ground lights file, and then you want to go ahead and name this, and you want to place this in a folder. So in this case, I've put this in a folder called Node Imports. I'm going to go ahead and call this Ground Lights. We'll call it Ground Lights Modern House. And so once you've done that, you can go ahead and you can click the box for OK. And one thing you might want to consider doing is you might want to consider having a fresh layer selected in here so you can put this on its own layer. That can be a little helpful a little later on. But one thing you're going to notice when you try to do this is you're going to be in here and you're going to be trying to align this with with your model and trying to get everything kind of in the right place. The only problem with that is wherever you click, you're not going to be exactly right. So I'm just going to click on this point right here, but what we want to do is we want to go ahead and let's go ahead and align these. So that's pretty easy to do. You can just select on this object, and then you can see how you've got these 2 points in here. You've got your ground lights and you've also got your replacement model. What you want is you want these to kind of be on the same point. So what I want to do in this case is I could drag this until it's on top of this item or this object if I wanted to, but the other thing you can do is you can just do a control click, because these are going to have the same insertion point. So you can just select them both, and then in your advanced options in Lumion 9 you can click on the button for align positions. Well, what that's going to do is that's going to take the insertion point for both of these objects and put them in the same place, and that means your lights are going to be in exactly the right position inside of your model in order for you to go ahead and replace them with actual Lumion lights. So now what you have in here is you have 2 different models. You have your SketchUp model right here, which is my node replacement model, and then if I mouse over this, you can see how I also have the models in here for my ground lights. Well, with my ground lights, what I want to do now, because my light geometry is already in here, what I want to do is I want to replace this ground lights object with lights on each one of these nodes. And you can do that inside of your advanced options. So in your advanced options, what you want to do is you want to click on this, then click on the little arrow, and you want to look for the item called Place Item on Nodes. So if I click on that, what that's going to do is that's going to tell you the number of nodes you have selected. So in this case, there were 5 lights and there were 5 nodes, so that's going to work properly. And then the other thing you have to do is you have to come in here and you have to dictate to it what you want to place on each one of those nodes. So you can see how your import library pops up. Well, I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to click on my lights and utilities, and I'm just going to select one of these lights. So I'm probably going to select one of these more narrow lamp options, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this. Well, you can see how when I click on this, what this does is this brings in lights and it places them on each one of these nodes. So if I kind of fly around and look at this, you can see how these nodes or these lights are getting placed right on this point. And so this has placed 5 lights on these nodes, which is what we want. We now have those lights in here, and what we can do is we can click OK in order to go ahead and place them. And then now what you want to do is these are already selected. If they weren't selected, you could go in here to select, and you can click on lights and utilities, and you could just click on one of these and then just click the button for select all identical objects, and that would allow you to select these. But what we want to do is we want to go in and we want to rotate these because we want these pointing up at our building. And so this is pretty easy to do. You can just come in here and you can just adjust the orientation by clicking the little slider right here and dragging. So you can see how I'm adjusting this and moving this. And since these are all kind of copies of the same object, it's pretty easy for you to just adjust them all at once. So you can come in here and you can adjust the pitch and everything else having to do with those lights right here. The bank doesn't really affect them because that just kind of spins them. But then the other thing you might want to think about doing is adjust the cone angle and also the brightness of your lights. You can do all of this with all of these objects selected. And so let's go ahead and let's turn our sun off, or really just take our sun height down. So you're just going to click on the button right here for weather, and you're going to adjust your sun height down so that it's dark in your model. And what you're going to notice when you do this is you've got a little bit of a problem, because this light isn't actually shining on this face right now. It's actually getting blocked by the actual light geometry inside of this model. And so what we want to do is we want to take these and we want to move them up just a little bit. And so if I click on objects, these are all still selected. So I'm just going to go in here to my select mode, and I'm just going to select the option for move up. And in this case, I'm just going to move these points up a little bit until they're above the light geometry. If you wanted to be a little more precise about this, you could probably move them forward or something like that. I'm not really ultra worried about that right now. I'm just worried about getting this to look kind of the way that we want it to look. And so now you can see how we have these lights in here shining off of this building. And so if we were to go in here and we were to go to photo mode, and we'll just use a night preset, so we'll just click on this night style, you can see how those lights are showing up pretty nicely on the face of this building. So if we were to do a test render, it would look something like this. So you can see how you're getting that nice point light look in here. And so let's go ahead and do the same thing with the downlights that go along the side of this building. And so I'm going to go a little bit quicker for this one. Sometimes it's easier to turn your sun height back up just so you can kind of see what you're looking at. But I want to do the exact same thing where I go into SketchUp and I find my group that has all of these individual downlights in it. So you can see all of these downlights are in this group and there's nothing else in here. And so I'm just going to select that group. There we go. We're going to go to File, Export, 3D Model. Same thing, collada file, make sure Export Only Selection Set is selected, and we're going to call this one Soffit Downlights, and click the button for Export. Then we're just going to go back into Lumion and do the same thing. So Import Objects, Import New Model, find your Soffit Downlights, and we'll go ahead and put this in Node Imports as well, or we'll click OK. And then we'll just do the same thing where we click on this point and then we'll just hold Control and click and drag across this, and we'll just click the button for Align Positions. So that'll put our lights in exactly the right spot. And then we'll just do the same thing where we're going to go in and we're going to select our downlights, click the button over here for advanced options and click Place Item on Nodes. And we're going to go ahead and select a light, and in this case maybe a light like this one, or maybe one of these lamps right here. You can really put whatever you want in here. And then once we've got these lights kind of set the way that we want them, we'll click OK, and we'll just rotate them. So we'll adjust the pitch on these to 90 degrees. So these lights are all going to point straight down. And so if you look at these lights, they're off just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into select mode. I'm just going to click on one of these and then click this button over here, and I'm going to click the button for select all identical objects. So I've got all of those selected. I can just move those over just a little bit so that they're kind of centered on those actual lights. And the other thing that you might want to do is you might want to come in here and move them down just a little bit, like a very small amount, just to make sure that they're actually below this soffit right here. And so what that allowed us to do is that allowed us to bring these lights in really quickly. So now the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here, and we can kind of preview this by turning our sun height down a little bit again. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into photo mode and I'm just going to render this. And the other thing I'm going to do is I actually do have a bunch of trees in the background that I had kind of on their own layer. So I'm just going to go into object mode and turn that layer on. So I actually have the trees around there now. And probably I'll turn the grass on as well, because that's probably going to show up a little bit right here. You can adjust the height or do whatever you want with that. But then we're just going to go in and we'll go ahead and pick a view. We'll go into photo mode and we'll pick a view kind of like this one. And then we're just going to come in here and we're just going to export an image. So just go with the night preset for now. We can look at some other night presets later. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the button for render photos. We'll just render this to our desktop, and I'll just call this test 2. You can call it whatever you want. But you can see how this gives you a really nice night render with your lights, and all you had to do was just bring those over using node replacement. And so you could mess around with things like exposure if you wanted it to be a little bit dimmer or something like that. So you could make a bunch of those changes as well. And so you can just kind of mess around with that until you get a result that you like. So that's where I'm going to end this video. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. Was this helpful to you? Have you done this node replacement before? I just love having that conversation with you guys. If you liked this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new rendering content every week. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.